Alright, so this morning I'm going to listen to an orchestra piece by Julia Wolfe called Pretty, and I also saw this piece at the Winnipeg New Music Festival in 2024. Um, Feels kind of weird to be visiting it because I just wrapped up uh, the 2025 festival here. So yeah, this piece is called Pretty, as I said before. Here's the full score. It's from Recordy, and this piece is pretty recent. It's from 2023. The instrumentation is 2222-4220, timp, 3 percussionists, harp, and strings. And percussion 1 is responsible for vibe, drum set. Player 2 is responsible for xylophone, marimba, guiro, hi-hat, 3 cymbals, snare drum, low tom, and the and a player 3 is responsible for glock, vibe, medium cymbal, and bass drum. And all 3 of them also have to play a drumstick, which is mounted, sort of to imitate the sound of hitting 2 drumsticks together, I'm assuming. So we have multiple vibes, drum set, which is obviously borrowed from popular music. The drum set in question that player 1 has, it in addition to like your snare and kick and hat, there's 3 toms and 2 cymbals, so I guess probably a crash and a ride, but it doesn't specify. So yeah, and this piece was commissioned by the Berlin Phil, Houston Symphony, Philadelphia Orchestra, and St. Louis Symphony Orchestra. So it was a joint commission, which I think orchestras nowadays are doing more and more. It's a win-win kind of thing, right? If don't have to spend as much money on your commission, and you still get to play the piece. You might not be the sole person to premiere it, but I don't think audiences really care that much. So, yeah, 24 minutes of orchestra music is expensive. Let's face it. Julia Wolfe is a post-war generation composer, so like born in 1958, and we've had a lot of composers born around that time because it was just a good time to be born, and it was easy for composers of this generation to become successful. I think it's safe to say. If you're born around the 40s, 50s, I mean, that's a really, in America too, great time to be an artist. So she became friends with Michael Gordon and David Lang, who are 2 other minimalist composers, and all 3 of them attended Yale. And then along with them, she founded Bang on a Can, which is like a contemporary classical organization with a focus on like popular music fusion and also minimalism. So that's what Wolfe is kind of known for, and at the time it was really like 1986. Minimalism was really cutting edge and it continues to be obviously a pillar of New York's music scene. I think that's enough. That's all you really need to know about Julia to appreciate this piece, at least. So you can understand why. There's drum set and lots of percussion. I'm curious to see how the harp's going to be used. And yeah, it's a nice lean instrumentation too. Double winds and reduced brass. I think it's very likely that this will be performed a lot. I saw it performed by the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. If you want to listen to a recording along with me, it's in the description to this video. And if you want to stick around for my opinions and thoughts, then just continue watching the video. Okay, yeah, so I apologize for the dramatic lighting today, but this is another early Sunday morning session. Yeah, so this definitely jogged my memory of the performance last year. This was by the BBC Symphony Orchestra, and yeah, really huge performance. Uh, Wolfe definitely knows what she's doing. She knows her way around an orchestra at this point. I'm gonna just see if there's any program note on this before because I have a feeling of what she was going for just based on the title, but I just don't want to speak for her. So, yeah, it's about how the word pretty is related to womanhood and and implies attractiveness without any rough edges or strength or power, in Julia's words. Uh, and she talks about how it's used destructively, and the etymology of the word she gets into a little bit. It's actually more, it used to mean cunning or crafty, so it has morphed into something much softer. So I guess her idea is to harden the word more. I think, like, while it is very raucous, it sounds like a lot of other Julia Wolfe pieces I've heard. Um, but I think it's a good sentiment, a good way to introduce people to the piece, invite listeners in, and certainly there's a lot of elements of this that are um, anti-pretty, you could say, but there's like uh, more of them towards the end of the piece. I actually think that there's a very steady incline in like intensity, so the ideas get more and more raucous, you could say, and more inspired by rock and roll, like towards the end of the piece. I'm thinking after the introduction of the drum set, then you get the really loud stuff, which honestly I kind of wanted more of. I wanted to sit on those things longer than 10 measures, you know? I wanted like minutes of that stuff, but um, I guess the composer's taste was a bit different. She often oscillates between 2 or 4 chords at a slow pace, and it reminds me a lot of like Pink Floyd or Mike Oldfield. That's sort of like progressive rock from the 60s and 70s. Um, it definitely has that sound, like especially there's a section where um, it was a bit more sustained tones and lots of staggered brass entrances and slow swells. That just sounded like something straight out of a Pink Floyd album, like Metal or um, Dark Side or something, which, you know, is kind of nostalgic for me and something that I associate with my teenage years. I love the siren idea, the like ramping up of these glissandi in the strings, and having that as a layer, as one of the sustained layers, and having obviously this more ostinato like constant straight sixteenths or straight eighths thing. Um, those two elements really come together very well, and you know, it's nothing fancy, but it works, right? So yeah, I think realistically the next piece should be Corey Reader. Um, a lot of these scores that are written within the past 5 years, I just have no access to recordings for them, and it's not the fault of the composers. It's just sort of the way that the orchestra world is. A lot of these are like student pieces from workshops or reading sessions, which I was a part of. And then this piece by Mazzoli and Lazic, I just couldn't find them. So I guess they haven't been professionally recorded yet.